Mr. BetSmart here. Extra places, an advanced match betting offer that can earn you thousands, if done correctly. So let's not waste any time and let's jump into the video. So the extra place offer works like this. This is a snippet from my last video which explains them in a very simple way quite well.
Caution, this is an advanced offer that requires you to have multiple of thousands of pounds in your bankroll to even think about taking it on. But they essentially work like this. If a bookie offers more places on a race than the exchange, then there is a discrepancy that we can take advantage of. By backing each way a horse on the bookie, so that will back the win and the place, and by laying the win and the place, so we've covered all the outcomes. If the horse that we have backed and laid comes in one of these extra places, that means we will win our back and our lay for the place bet, giving us a nice tidy profit. This offer requires good knowledge of implied odds and being EV+, which means expected value. Implied odds is the odds that result from the QL taken and the winnings that you would receive if the horse placed in one of the extra places. So with a £1 qualifying loss and £100 of winnings if your horse places in an extra place, this would be 100 implied odds. Now we can identify if a bet is EV+, if the implied odds are higher than the actual odds are of the horse placing in an extra place. Now, the question is, how can we actually know what the actual odds are of a horse placing in an extra place? Well, it's not as simple as implied odds. There are a few good indicators and factors that we can take and put together to help us roughly estimate it. The first is Sky Bet's single place market. This is a market which shows you the bookie's odds of a horse placing in an exact position. This gives us a bookie perspective of the actual odds. If there was one extra place and there was a market like this on Sky Bet, then we could use this as a decent indicator. Now, as the bookies add high margins to their odds, I usually want my implied odds to be at least around double of what the market would put up for the odds of the horse placing in a specific place. So if Sky Bet put a horse up to have odds of around 5 of finishing, say, in an exact position of 4th, I would want my implied odds to be at least around 10 or higher. When there are multiple extra places, it gets a little bit more complicated, but it's still a decent metric to use. Which brings me on to number 2, the amount of extra places. This simply increases the chances of making a horse place in an extra place and giving you a chunky profit. Number 3 is the number of runners in the race. This combined with the number of extra places that are available for the race and the bookie are the key factors to take into account for looking at the value. 1 place in a race with 40 runners is very low value, but 2 places in a 10 horse race is much higher value. Off the face of it, 1 in 40 is just a lot lower than 2 in 10. Number 4 is the odds of the horse winning the race. The lower the odds, the more likely they will finish in an extra place. The higher the odds, the less likely. But that shouldn't rule out higher odds horses. They do finish in extra places and will pay out higher profits. They just need to be taken with qualifying losses and EV in mind. So with all these factors in mind, we combine them all to see if there's value in the horse and race or not. Now, this is the method that I use. Firstly, I identify the best value races that I want to jump on. This includes the bookmaker as well, as they may vary in the number of extra places that they offer. Then I will simply use the extra place catcher to find matches for these horses and these bookmakers. I will be using a rough estimate of implied odds that I will be wanting to take for that race. For a 10 runner race with 2 extra places, I would be looking for an implied odds of around 8 to 10 plus. This value clearly outweighs the actual odds of a horse placing in an extra place, so it is a good benchmark to use. Say a match showed up with 15 implied odds, with 5 win odds and 1.8 place odds, with a 5.1 lay on the win and a 2
lay on the place. If the horse didn't extra place, your qualifying loss would be £11.96. If it did place in an extra place, you would make £168.04 for a £100 each way stake, so totaling £200. And that's extra places. Please note that people go for slightly different minimum implied odds, so find what works for you and stick to it. Bankroll management is also super key. If you had unlimited money, you could take every EV Plus opportunity, but you don't. So take the highest EV Plus matches and work backwards by bookmaker and race. You will also have losing streaks. Please make sure that you have the discipline to know that this is a long-term offer before getting started, and a bankroll of at least £2,000. You also need to be really quick. Odds can move really fast, especially for the higher profile events like Ascot and Cheltenham. Thanks for watching. If you found any of this content useful, please like and subscribe to the video. Good luck, enjoy the extra place offer, and take the edge off the bookies.